do. Mithrander, Discolor, Dirtbag, St. Elmo, the Zipper, the Sidewinder, and Nighthawk had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the hacking of the Synchronet boards in this area. All me.
What you're seeing and hearing requires a bit of explanation. That first sound was just the negotiation of a dial-up analog modem. And I just put that in as a throwback to the era of the subject of this video, which is really the voice recording of a hacker. I don't really care much for that term, but a guy who broke into some online systems, and I'll have to give that some explanation as well. In this time frame, I was the author of a bulletin board system software. I still am, but at the time it was actually a commercial product, and I had a company where we sold this software and supported it, and we had hundreds or maybe even in the thousands of people using the software. Certainly users of the software, a large number, but as far as system operators, there was also a lot, and a lot of them were in the Southern California, Orange County area, and because that's where I was located, that's where a lot of my friends and a lot of the beta sites for the software were located. And around 1992, I started hearing of systems potentially being hacked or cracked or whatever. They were broken into remotely, and this remote person was able to download the usernames and passwords of everybody on the BBS and then log in as them, or log into other systems if they had the same password. Kind of like you hear about today with websites where they have a credential leak or whatever, some kind of penetration where quote-unquote hacker gets a list of all the usernames and passwords and can use them to do bad things. Back in the day, not too many people were doing online banking or e-commerce. There wasn't a whole lot to worry about if you had the same password, but still, we took it fairly seriously. A friend of mine, King Dreyfus, his BBS was being hacked at 4 in the morning, and he caught the guy in the act. And we, conducted some investigation trying to, find out who it was and how many people knew about it. And, in the process, we did determine that a lot of course, a lot of people knew that the vulnerability existed in the software, but they didn't know exactly what it was. And some of those people were actually beta sites for the software, which violated their agreement with us. If they knew of a vulnerability, they were supposed to tell us. That was part of the agreement. So they're in violation of that. So we revoked some beta licenses, and there was sort of a bit of turmoil around the time. Well, I don't recall making any accusations, but I do recall that somebody anonymously uploaded a file to my bulletin board system known as Vertrauen, and the description of the file said it was an anonymous admission of guilt. And, you upload this file, and you had to run it in order to hear his voice. And, in it, he's basically taking credit, but he's not saying who he is. He's saying it's not all these other people, and, I've hacked all these boards, and, well, you can hear it for yourself. Anyway, fast forward about 20 years, and I was telling my friend, who also is in the BBS community and a programmer, about this odd, thing, this uploaded audio file, back in 1993, and he was saying, hey, give me the file, and I'm like, well, let me find it in a backup, and eventually I did. It was months later. I found it in some old backup, and it's in this proprietary format. And the player is some 16-bit DOS program that doesn't want to run in any kind of version of Windows that I have anyway. And even when it did run, it couldn't output to the PC speaker. It needed direct, access to the hardware. And, the file format was, really not obvious to me. I couldn't find anything that would play it or convert it. So My friend, of course, insisted, oh, I can solve this problem, or with using this program called SOX, S-O-X, which I wasn't familiar with, which I did try that, and it did not recognize the file format either. But a few more months went by, and I decided to give this friend of mine who goes by the alias Deuce the files, and within, I don't know, a few hours, he determined that it was a 16 kilohertz 1-bit sample, which is a very odd format, and he had converted it into an 8-bit sample that SOX program could then convert into a wave, a 16-bit sample wave file that could be played back on a Windows computer. And for the first time in like 20 years, I heard that sound, that guy talking with that high-pitched squeal and the static. And it was, a flashback. I immediately remembered everything he said, and it all amazing how, just hearing a little bit of it, I could, instantly remember the next thing he said and the next little chuckle and the sound of his voice. And anyway, it was interesting. So I will, include a transcription of what the guy says. Although he says, that we'll find out who he is and et cetera, and he'll, keep in communication. He never did. We never found out who he was, and it's still a mystery. So if he's somewhat involved in the BBS community, or somehow somebody knows or recognizes his voice, he might get a chuckle out of, hearing what he was up to back then. Anyway, Deuce was not satisfied with that horrible audio you heard. So the first thing he did was to filter out that 8 kilohertz whine, and I'll play a sample of what that sounds like. That's a big improvement, and then we loaded into a program called Audacity, and then applied some noise removal techniques. That created a lot more clear audio, which I'll play a little bit for you here.
Give credit where credit's due. Mithrander, Discoler, Dirtbag, St. Elmo, the Zipper, the
Deuce wasn't satisfied with that, so he implemented something called an FIR filter, a finite impulse response.
Give credit where credit's due. Mithrander, Discoler,
and that created a lot more smooth waveform. It did somewhat muffle the highs in his voice, but there's almost no noise now, no crackle, and certainly no hiss or whine. And you can hear that now. And he did this with a Perl script, some file format cracking foo. And the result is this guy lives on in the 21st century, 22 years later. Anyway, he's got kind of an ominous chuckle and laugh and stuff. He's funny to listen to, so enjoy.
Give credit where credit's due. Mithrander, Discoler, Dirtbag, St. Elmo, the Zipper, the Sidewinder, and Nighthawk had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the hacking of the Synchronet boards in this area. All me. No, I'm not going to tell you who I am. You'll find out someday, I'm sure. I don't really give a shit. All of their accounts have been used on various of the boards. I've hacked Beast Domain, Virtual, TNT, the Guild of Thieves, and what's Dirtbag's board's name? I can't remember. Anyway, got that one too. Nothing was ever done that could have damaged anything. It was usually hit and run, no traces. The object was to gain information, phone numbers and addresses basically. I could care less about passwords. Not into downloading files under their names, nothing like that. And I'm also not into crashing boards or deleting anything that you've got going right now. Completely passive. I've been doing this for months. And I would have continued to do it if I wouldn't have gotten caught by King Dreyfus. Who would have known he would have been up at 4 o'clock in the morning? Jeez. Has he no life? Well, who am I to talk? I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning doing it. I've been into almost every board in the area, with the exception of Seth Friedman's board. By the time I found out he was running a Synchronet board, he wasn't running a Synchronet board. You'll be hearing from me again, because a little RE code isn't the only way you're going to have to fix it to keep me out. But I'm only doing it for fun and for information. Like I said, not to do any damage. Tell you what, next time I get into your bulletin boards, I'll let you guys know how I did it. Then you can fix it. Then I'll find another one. Hey, this could be fun. Take it easy. And don't be so damn paranoid. Oh yeah, and a special note to King Dreyfus. I see you've been having a little fun yourself.
That's a good YouTube video. You're terrible.